Hey everybody, it's Mike Peasall, pastor at Gateway Christian Center in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Today is Wednesday, July 29th, and this is Mike's Midweek message. I'm a little late today. One of my grandchildren turned 11 today, and his birthday party was right at 11 o'clock. Has something to do with the Hobbits, I don't know, but it was a great time. So a little late, you'll have to forgive me for that. Today's topic, dismiss an opportunity, derail a blessing. You and I have opportunities all the time that come into our life, and there are times that we think that opportunity is just too big. I remember a guy who his favorite saying was, the opportunity of a lifetime is only good for the lifetime, but the lifetime of the opportunity. The opportunity of a lifetime is only good for the lifetime of that opportunity. In other words, it's a great opportunity, but you have to do it today if you're going to do it. You and I, we have opportunities, but sometimes we look at those opportunities and go, man, that's bigger than me. It's more than I can do. It's beyond me. And so I want to talk about that today, because when we dismiss an opportunity, we almost always derail a blessing. Okay, so here we are, Matthew chapter 14, verses 14 through 21. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd. Of course, we're talking about Jesus. And he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now, Jesus had just found out that his cousin, John the Baptizer, his cousin, had been beheaded by Herod. The news was out now, and he was sad about that. He wanted to kind of pull away from the crowd. Sometimes in ministry, we need to pull away from the crowd for a little while. That happens here to Jesus. But when the crowd follows him, he still has compassion on them, and he wants to do for them what they need him to do. Verse 15, now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowd away to the village so they can buy food for themselves. Okay, now here's the disciples. They've been walking with Jesus now over a couple of years. They've seen him do some pretty amazing things. But this is going to be their first time where he's going to see him do it like a mass feeding. So they don't know yet what we know. But they were like, hey, let's send these people home so that let's send them to the towns around here, send them home so that they can get supplies and they can eat. But Jesus said, they need not go away. You give them something to eat. Now, I mean, put yourself in the disciples' position. They're all looking at each other going, we don't even have food for ourselves. How are we going to feed these other people? They said to him, we have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish, which, by the way, weren't even theirs, right? We have 5 loaves and 2 fish. We got 5 biscuits and a couple of little, large sardines. Jesus said, bring them here to me. Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. Okay. I see here there are three miracles. To me, the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, which, if it's just 5,000 men, then how many women and children are there? I believe there were well over 10,000 people that Jesus is going to feed with 5 biscuits and a couple of little fish. So they all ate and were satisfied. So 10,000 plus people ate so much that they were satisfied. And then the disciples, and they took up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. Now, this story is different than the other story that we see about the feeding of the 3,000. And the word basket here is very different, because remember in the other one, they didn't pick up 12 baskets, they picked up fewer baskets. But they were actually really big baskets. Here, basically the disciples who wanted to dismiss an opportunity, they walk away with, each one of them has a snack pack for the next day's journey. Every one of them, because Jesus said yes to the opportunity, these guys all received a blessing that they got to carry with them. And I imagine every time they reached into that basket and they pulled out a piece of bread and they pulled out that piece of fish, they were like, man, that was pretty amazing. I have more in my basket now than we started out with. How did Jesus do that? Jesus is, he's in a sorrowful place, but he sees an opportunity. he invites his disciples to come in on that opportunity. And not only do they get to bless the crowd, but they get blessed. In Luke chapter 9, it's a different telling of the same story. Now the day began to wear away, and the 12 came to him and said, "Send the crowd away to go into the surrounding villages and countryside to find lodging, to get provision, for we are here in a desolate place." But he said, "You give them something to eat." They said, "We have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fishes, unless we are to go and buy food for all these people." So again, it's the same story, just told from a little bit different perspective. It's like we don't have those resources. As long as we are connected to the God of all creation, there's actually no limit to our resources. Now, I'm not saying, you should go out and write bad checks and things like that, but stop thinking that all you have at your disposal is what's in your bank account. Because as believers in Jesus Christ, we have access to what he has, which is an endless supply. So I said earlier that I see 3 miracles, or I see this one miracle in 3 parts. First of all, Jesus takes 5 biscuits and 2 small fish, and he fills 12 baskets. Okay, so these guys, they all step up. Jesus said, "Okay, guys, I'm gonna," and he blesses it, and then he begins to break it out. Now you think about 5 loaves and 2 fish divided by 12 guys. Everybody's going to get just enough to put in their hand. But as Jesus distributes it to the people who are going to distribute it, it goes from 5 loaves and 2 fish to 12 baskets of food, which, by the way, we end up with 12 baskets of food. So they get exactly what they're going to end up. And then the next miracle is that disciples used 1 basket of food to feed 500 to 800 people. So if there's over 10,000 people, each of the 12 disciples is going to feed between 500 and 800 people. How big a basket does that have to be when you go to the next person and they reach in and there was just as much fish and chips as there were the person before them, and the basket stayed full. So Jesus, the first miracle, Jesus takes 5 and 2 and turns it into 12. And then the next miracle is that the 12, as they distributed it, I think I would have to think, if it was me, I would begin at some point to think, I'm just going to see if I can get rid of this stuff in my basket. I bet I can't. And they couldn't. And then the final miracle is that everybody ate until they were satisfied, and there was still 12 baskets of leftover food, which to me just kind of shows that the disciples are going to carry. They're going to carry this miracle into the next day. You and I need to be carrying the miracles that we've seen into the next day. So next time you have an opportunity to do something that you think is a little bit beyond you, it seems like maybe it's the opportunity of a lifetime, but I'm not sure. Pray about it and then see, what does God want you to do? How does God want you to invest your time? How does God want you to invest your resources? And understand that if God is presenting an opportunity, he will always present the resources you need to make that opportunity be a successful ministry situation. And in that, we walk away with not only a testimony, not only God being glorified, but it gives us the encouragement to go, man, if God did this yesterday, just imagine what he's going to do tomorrow. I hope you have an incredible week, and I will see you next Wednesday in August.